ingorodzi yatangodzidzirawo tasangana namambo Changambire. We just thought, come try to play with me, and it's such an honor to be able to be playing Changambire in Belfast. I think I was saying to you 3 years ago, you were speaking somewhere on 5th Street. But in my spirit, I said, don't do AI spiritual connection. That's what I said. No, I will not go. It was that I'm not going in to see you. But then that's when I was actually beginning to pick up what your work and what you were doing. But I know I'll see you. I'll see you. But surprise, surprise. Now you've come to Belfast. Now we're playing Bira together, which is quite amazing. I think at this we have been following Changambire's work. I think part of it is that when I look at you, you're very disruptive in the sense that you speak to your true beliefs. What you believe is what you stand up for, and you speak it out. Whether it's politics, whether it's religion, I think it's fine in that place where what you believe yourself. I think this is a lesson that we might take from you, Kuti. Let's be true to ourselves. Let's know who we are. Then that way, so maybe Changambire, my first question, maybe let me address what you did yesterday. So some of you might not know, my name is Agrippa Janina. So I work up here at the Ulster Museum. So it so happened that Changambire was passing through. Then he came into the museum. We interacted. But I think the thing that happened is you then took off, you undressed your hat, and you immediately approached the museum and said, I'm donating this object to the museum. And the museum at this time, I think it was a charter or a Northern Ireland, nekutukwa tichitukirwa makanda edu and nevarungi vava. A lot is happening, but it's, as you will have noticed in the there's an attempt in Muma Museum to try and begin to tell the stories Evan Watema through the collection that you saw. And I think it touches on the issue of colonialism and decolonization. What are your thoughts? Where do you think Northern Ireland is? Issues here, and whenever questions, please feel free to ask, because it's a diary. It's where we artists to open to speaking, all of us. Can you talk to that? Maybe before we continue, Changambire, we just want to recognize mzukuru wangu Mambokazi, Amelia, for making this possible as well. Especially for us, I think it's important for us. Oh, sorry, this language of ours that we've been used to speaking, so we'll be mixing for you to, or maybe Taz, do you think you can interpret here and there? But we will.
What were you trying to say?
No, I was just trying to say that we are speaking in this language, but for her to hear, for those that cannot hear English, our language.
Oh, no, it's okay. She can understand Sean.
Ah, good. So we want to recognize voices of Mother Earth for making this possible. So thank you, Mambokazi, for doing that. So Changambire, what are your thoughts on decolonization and racism in Northern Ireland and for the people that are here?
Northern Ireland is not an island. It is part of the United Kingdom. Whether it is by choice, by war, or by default. But the reality is this small little piece of an island has terrorized more than 122 countries around the world, from Canada to Australia, to Africa, and the Caribbean. The growth of the British Empire does not only grow in terms of political expansion, but in terms of a clear economic agenda. The expansion of the empire came with what I documented in one of my monumental works entitled African Questions and African Solutions. And in that book, you can also find it on the internet. I think it's on Google and other spaces, Amazon and Take a Lot, and all the major leading bookstores around the world. We explore the pillars of colonization. I'll come to the museum as one of the items there. We explore the pillars of colonization as an agenda of one race, for whatever reason or amusement, they decide and think to invade other people's lands. And they deem that their culture is more superior, the culture that they find there. Back to back with that, then they set up an infrastructure of what we might call government instruments that manage that project. Number one, they institute a governance system. How these communities must be ruled and must be governed. So within that institution, you find that police are put in place, soldiers are put in place, a court is put in place, and at the back of everything, there's a prison where you can get rid of the stubborn, the arrogant, and cut them off away from the community. We never had prisons in Africa at all. They were actually introduced to us during colonization. We did not have. We had our own ways of dealing with social relegates within our community. And every family that had a rock in the family, they knew how to deal with that rock. Because whatever problem that they would create, the entire family would be held responsible in terms of retribution, in terms of payments, in terms of paying back whatever damage that had been done. It takes a village to bring up a child, therefore. Then it was no longer an individual life. It's my life, my wife, my husband, my cup, my car. We, as children who grew up in the 60s, we did not belong to our mothers and fathers, we belong to the community. There you are found with your cattle in the neighbor's farm. The farmer there will beat you up and bring you to your grandfather, who will continue also. And if anyone else who is elderly finds you doing anything that was devious and mischievous, the whole community will get involved. That whole system of governance was thrown upside down. And our children are now spending more time in school than they are spending with their parents. And by the time they come back, we wonder why we don't know our children. Because honestly, you don't know them. You only see them for 2 hours. An hour in the morning when you're preparing their food. If you're having 2 shifts, you kiss them good night when they are sleeping. You meet them over the weekend, if you are lucky, if they don't have activities. By the time they're 13, 14, they have their own lives and they're out. And while you are away busy trying to make a living, someone else is teaching them. And we wonder why we have children, but we no longer know who they are. Literally, we're giving birth to strangers. That's the honest truth. Back to back with governance, then the kid created an agricultural system, which was based on land disposition, where then we will be pushed into arid land that was non-productive. And all the fertile land was taken, either as trophies or retirement packages for the British Army. I speak in the Zimbabwean context. And after agriculture, they instituted a fallacy of a business system, which was based on taxation. Taxation was leading us to fiat money, where we, instead of doing barter system, where we're exchanging value for value, now pieces of paper were being used as forms of transaction. Today, you can Google on your phone if you have enough time. $100 bill of American dollar costs 18 cents to print it. 18 cents. That is the true value of the dollar. 18 cents. But because the world has agreed that it is $100, it is $100. But in reality, it's 18 cents. So someone brings a whole box full of 18 cents worth of papers, and they buy land, an immovable object that matures with time and appreciates with time. The business was messed up. Education was another form of colonization, where we begin to teach children about the other rather than teaching them about themselves. Sports, entertainment, and recreation keep them occupied, consuming all the wrong information and creating new heroes, new forms of fashion, and new expectations. By the time education is done with them, their minds through entertainment, they're already polluted with a new expectation of who they must become. Give you $1 million right now, you will take all that money and spend it on the fantasies of your entertainment. The things that you were taught by entertainment is what life is all about. That's what you're going to do. And after sports and entertainment, health and technology became the next bus stop, where our technologies, our sciences, our methods of healing ourselves were taken away, and hospitals and tablets became our way of life. Diet was messed up, and after messing up in diet, we are waiting for you in hospital. And we've already educated you to say what you knew as Africans, it has now become witchcraft.
So do you want to touch even more on this? Because you've talked about miseducation. That's one of what we find in the education system that is colonial. And obviously you've talked about the displacement of our own cultural heritage.
I'm coming on the couch.
But you know what I wanted to ask you, because you talked earlier about Vadzimu, and these are things that are misunderstood. Can you, as you go, please talk more to enlighten people? Because we are comparing that with what you described as the church having power from the religious colonialism. You find that people are not sure what to do now.
After health and technology were messed up, the last one is spiritual repositioning, culture and heritage, where the sacredness of our land, the sacredness of our forests, which was our pharmaceutical, the forests, the waters that were clean. There's a time before colonialism came where I was privileged to live in that era, where we went with our cattle to the river and we drank waters from the rivers. Clean. You can't do that now. Cyanide and pesticides that are washing away from the fields because of planting of this corn, this new devil that you call corn, sadza, and all other forms of colonial products. They need lots of chemicals to keep them awake. Whereas in our olden culture, you would plant your millimil, your sorghum, your rapoko, your watermelons, your beans, and etc. That 4-in-1 concept, so that while the other plant is taking the aphids, the other plant is taken care of. So the ecology of our agriculture did not need any extra, and then we used the cow manure to actually grow those plants. We lost our spirituality, the connection to the essence of life, the very elements to which were given to us as an inheritance. The whole concept of Mudzimu is not funny. It is not demonic, because even the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and etc., all those are ancestors. They're long dead and gone. Why would you call them in a place of prayer if they are still alive? So what is wrong with you saying God of Abraham, God of Jacob, God of Isaac? And I say, Mwari wa Maponga Mara-Rah, Mwari wa Nduma, Mwari wa Nokwara, Mwari wa Zbo, Mwari wa Fumujena, Mwari wa Chapindukan, etc. And I call my own ancestors, through which I have become what I am. Does it mean that when I become a Christian, I lose my DNA of being an African and I become a European? But of course, that was a commercial side of religion, where the whiteness of Jesus and the whiteness of the colonizer became married. And we could not fight a white man because he was meant to look like the savior, of the person that is coming to help you out of the blackness of your culture. But now we know that actually in our primitiveness, quote unquote, we are far much more educated than we are now in our educated state. Because even now, no matter how educated we are, the whole world over, I challenge, from Hong Kong to Massachusetts, from Cambridge to Cape Town, to show me that you're educated, just build me 1 meter of a pyramid. 1 meter only. I'm not going to ask for 30 or 60 meters. Just 1 meter. Build it. Build me one wall of the Great Zimbabwe with no foundation and no mortar. Stones only. Build it, and it can stand for thousands of years. We have not even yet gone back to find out the technologies and the sciences. The Bushmen are said to be very primitive. They used to put on skins and they were writing on the walls. Oh, wow. Some of those paintings are still there to date. In the sun, with the wind every day, and the rain in every season. You go and look at the painting, it still looks as fresh as if it was painted yesterday. What quality of paint is that? Don't just tell me they were painting. Look at the technology, the science. What chemicals did they use to build and make that painting? If we can find the formula of that paint, then how many times do we paint our houses? To be once every 13,000 years, once every 12,000 years. The sciences of the past were so sophisticated and so complex. When we started doing trading with the British, when we started doing trading, it was now. But as early as 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th century, way before colonization, Zimbabwe, which I come from, we were doing trade with the Phoenicians and the Chinese. So don't talk about the Chinese in the 21st century. The polystyrene and other artifacts from China are actually found, were found, and they took them into the museums here in Europe, here in London. I don't know where they are. Yeah. And it is written in the London from the Queen herself that whoever is exploring the Great Zimbabwe and the artifacts of Great Africa, particularly in Zimbabwe, you can Google that statement, it's written down from the Royal House. That dare you challenge the civilization of the British. Anyone who is investigating these ruins must not admit that these were built by the Africans. Because by admitting that these were built by Africans, we're actually affirming that their civilization is superior to ours. I'm not lying. The British and the white people only started learning how to bath now, a few days ago. Through the Moors, we taught them how to bath. Even now, they still don't know how to bath properly. They just put water in the sink and they don't know how to bath. But we come to the appreciation of the fact that the spirituality of the African was not a program. It was a taught lifestyle which we went through initiation through our lives. Why did I give my head to the museum here in Ireland? I felt like part of the colonization project was to collect artifacts and human beings as trophies. This is not new. They are doing this based on the Ostrogoths and the Visigoths, the barbarians and the Vandals who used to walk around this great space of. And every time they went to war, then they would take heads of people and put them on their swords and bring them back home, and then they hang these heads around their homesteads to show their conquests and the number of things that they had conquered, including the collection of the various heads of the people that they had killed. So collecting heads as trophies, collecting heads as trophies was actually part of the barbarian way of celebrating your victory. And true to their word, when they came to Africa, they did not stop that barbaric act of cutting off heads and bringing them up here. Germany on its own killed 25,000 Namibians, Herulis, a genocide that is not spoken about. But don't doubt the Germans, of course. They have another 2 million plus from the Jews, which they had, and now they have another 25,000 in Namibia. Only a few weeks ago did I start hearing some negotiations that the Germans want to return some of those scalps. But it was cruel, because they would kill a man and then ask the wife to scrape off the skin. All they wanted was the bone itself. So the museums here are a clutter, where they would find me as a village chief or king holding this stick, and they did not know what this stick was for. So they would kill you, grab your things, in some certain case, grab them violently, kill and collect. They say it was collection, but it was thuggery and theft of the highest order. Why did I give my head to your museum? I felt bad when I walked in that museum, and I almost felt like most of those things that are there are stolen. So I looked at her and I said, you don't have to steal anymore. I'll give you. I'll give you mine. And you can write on it that this one was given by. Because many of those artifacts.
If I could add quickly to what you're saying, and I hope we can have.
And he's a museum curator also, so he knows what I'm talking about.
Zimbabweans, I think I would love for our Zimbabwean people to come into the museum. I think something that we'll have to arrange. All, as you are saying, the precious stones that if you Google them, to find out what they do, the healing properties, because people used to walk on them from Bikita, from places like Buhera. They are in the museum here in Northern Ireland. The pond or suspends, all those things that we talk about, that we only heard about, actually here in Northern Ireland. So as you say, the stories are here. It's engaging with those stories so that we can actually know a bit of our history and realign ourselves to a better understanding.
I would like to add on that you, particularly the Zimbabwean community, go to the museum, set yourselves up into a committee of some sort. You can contribute as community curators to some of the cultural artifacts that are there. And you can actually be instrumental in the return of some of them, or the correct histories behind some of them. I mean, you might see a young goud, some of those gouds that are there, and you guys want to chew money in it. And when they look at all those things, the first thing they say is that this is witchcraft. What witchcraft are you talking about? This is a container that the young girl, when she's now mature, she's going to start her home. The aunties and the grandmothers would then do the grinding of ground nuts. Then they squeeze the finest of oils, and then they fill up this gourd with it. When she is washing the hands of the elders. Then she would actually drop in some oil for the elders to oil their hands. She would also use that oil to oil herself. And in case of other things we can't mention for the sake of the children, these were some of the oils in our aphrodisiacs and etc. that actually women will be carrying. But for you to come as an outsider and just see a girl carrying a gourd in her hand and say that's witchcraft, you are forgetting this is the oil that I use for oiling myself, even making other parts of my body more user-friendly during other moments of interactions, which we can't explain for religious reasons. You know, and the reality of us knowing and understanding these cultural practices, then we redeem some of these cultures from the pit where they have been relegated and excluded.
So we have two questions, Changambire. We have
One-
two questions.
one
So
at a
there's one. So Reggie wanted to ask a question, then Taz after that.
Yeah.
So please feel free to now fire questions that while we have it.
I wanted to just, you've touched on this briefly, you know, when you're talking about spirituality. And I want you to maybe just briefly explore the role of the Bible as we know it now to our way of, you know, worshiping God as it existed, you know, back in the day. Did the Bible add to our understanding of, you know, close some gaps that we maybe didn't, you know, have because now it's written? Because I think you're a firm believer of the Bible from the way you were speaking, especially the Old, you know, you're talking about the Old Testament and God creating the world. But obviously, we believed in a God, Mskaran, you know. How do you marry the two?
I'm wondering, when did you see a goat giving birth to a sheep? And when I use the Bible, I'm just trying to build a bridge between what people understand to the direction of what they might not understand fully. But our epistemologies and hegemonies in terms of dealing with the supernatural are far much more superior to what the Bible actually teaches, way beyond. Because the genesis of the Bible by itself happens to be 6,000 years old, according to the text. But the civilization of the Egyptians is 4,000 to 5,000 years prior to the establishment of the Bible, human beings. Even the Bible has a problem with the creation of human beings, where Cain kills his brother, and then God says, the blood of your brother is crying before me, but I will relegate you, you must go to the north. And Cain says, but if I go there, they will kill me. And then God agrees and says, but no, they will not kill you. I will put a sign on your head so that when they see you, they will not kill you. But who was there to kill you? If the only people that were on earth were inside the garden here. So right in the book of Genesis, you begin to find a whole plural creation story sort of thing. Even the concepts of Enoch, as far as chapter 4, Enoch, having married 2 wives, and etc. And they say, but where does the wife come from? All we hear is Adam and Eve, Cain and Abel, and then Jiggy on chapter 4, a man has got 2 wives. And by the time we come to chapter 6 and 7, the whole world is wicked and evil. There are thousands of people. And then you ask, how many millions would have been born out of 2 people in such a short space of time within one lifespan? That could be talking of millions of people. So without wasting your time in terms of going for the biblical narrative, we have Musikavanu, who is the creator of human beings. Underline that. We have Musika Ana, which is the girl child, which is the one who makes babies. So Musikavanu, the one who makes human beings, and the one who makes babies, actually God and the female energy are one. Both of them are creators. As it were, women are not human. Women are spiritual. They are the portal between the spiritual and the physical. Women are able to convert words and water into bonds and marrow and life. And here you are today. A total mystery of how a human being can make another human being. If a man wants to see himself, he can't see God. He can only see himself. And the mirror through which humanity can see itself is the woman. How do you know you love a woman? When you can see your children in her eyes. Then business has started. Now that mystery for me Women are not natural, I say it again, because the cycles in their wombs are not on your watch or a calendar on the wall. It is where the moon is, movement of the cosmos, as it is moving in their own cosmos. And therefore, any woman who tries to be like a man has lost value for herself. How can you compete and challenge that which you gave birth to?
Thank you, Changambire.
What's the question?
Taz, you had a question.
If he doesn't,
I don't remember. What was it again?
Well, you had a question. Just think about it while
I get one. Right?
yeah, right while Ray has.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out on this Muzimu business and the like St. Patrick's Day and Halloween. My colleagues here might help me know the difference, or is it the same?
I can
or is
answer
it
you
different?
to that. St. Patrick's is something that you create when you get a pen and say, today,
St.
I'm
Patrick's
gonna, yeah, St. Patrick's. Somebody decided to just say, I'm gonna do this. Next question.
No, Taz, you're wasting our time. Come on.
No,
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 it's
there's
about
no
fasting.
such thing.
Do you
Such
understand?
things that.
Answer phone. Would you
Hello?
understand or compare the difference? To me, it looks the same. To me, it looks the same. If people come to your country, like the British come to Zimbabwe years ago and say Muzimu is bad, you are like, you know, respecting or thinking the dead helps you to get the dead. And then you come to the UK and they tell you that St. Patrick's Day, a person who died years and years ago, you respect him in that way. If you understand that, is there any difference, or is that brainwash, or is it what? And in Halloween and that. if
You're asking me a Catholic question. And
I'm Catholic.
yes, yes. And the Catholic question has to do with the preservation of memory of the Catholic institutions. The pontification and the veneration of heroes and people they deem to be influential, to build up the narrative and the history of how do they celebrate and how do they calibrate their time. So you don't just wake up and become St. Patrick's. There must have been a St. Patrick somewhere who did something monumental in the Catholic history.
On your life.
And he then, not only alive,
During the
in
life of
his,
St.
yes, in their lives, and to create a library, a museum of knowledge, of remembering whether it is Guy Fawkes, it is St. Peter, St. Mary, it is of late Pope John Paul himself, Fatima, and etc. All these characters that have walked into the Catholic history. Then they are venerated, idols, images, and histories are put up, and their lives are diarized onto the diary to be celebrated. But even then, I don't want to become too hard on the Catholics. They are doing so to evoke the very spirit of the person and the goodness that they did. For example, Valentine would be remembered, Saint Valentine, as the loving person, and therefore the celebration of love and etc. will be done within the Valentine spirit, that it will let there be flowers and sharing and etc. Easter, the whole concept of celebrating the festivities of reproductivity, and Christmas, the Nimrod stories and the birth of Christ, as it were, though we know that historically it's impossible for Christ to have been born on the 25th of December. If you have been to Jerusalem, like I have been, in the month of December, November, December, you can't go out and be found herding sheep in the mountains. Those sheep will freeze in the cold. They will die, for saying the least. So there should have been another time altogether where the shepherds should have been taking these sheep out, and there could not be a better time but to look around June, July, August, when the temperatures will be good, because then the history itself tells you that the shepherds were out looking after their sheep. Now, how do the shepherds look after their sheep in a month where actually it's impossible to look after sheep? So then imposition of these dates in populating the library, now we have Jesus, who is supposed to have been born on Christmas, which is not true. And so it is the pontification of Catholic history created into a timetable, so that in the reflection of those saints, a sense of time is captured away from us. But the question is, do we not have our own people Do we not have our own history? If we should go to the American history, the liberation of the slaves, are you telling me we cannot find any heroes there? If we go to the liberation of Africa in her totality, are you telling me you can't find any heroes there? If you go to your own family and you see what some of your family members have done, can you not write your own history? But no, colonialism always glorifies the history of the colonizer and then bulldozes itself, pushes you away from your history, tells you when to go to church, when to come out of church, when to kneel down, when to stand up, and when to sit down. And I have a particular problem with these gods that come with a passport, particularly Allah and Jesus. We need a passport to come to another country and be taught to another people. And yet we tell those people that He's the one who created you. Now, if you created us, how come we don't have the name Jesus in Shona, in Zulu, in Nyanja, in Kiswahili? And if Jesus is a problem with the African, then He never created them. Why bother? No, He must be explained. Where is He? He's hiding on John 3 verse 16. Open there, you'll find Him. A whole creator of the universe, hiding in a book. Hiding in a chapter somewhere. So we cannot begin to even to explain the amount of brainwashing, the usurping, theft of time, the stealing of time, that now the African must spend so much time sitting in a church, non-productive, supposed to be talking to someone who is in the air there.
I think that's so true, because I was brought up a Catholic myself, right? And it's only like 5 years ago or so when I actually was able to win out the thinking that Jesus was white. And this is what had happened. I'd gone to a church. I just remember the Catholic church in Zimbabwe that I went to, with all the, you know, the artwork that is there, it's so beautiful. And the priest would come in with a glass. And remember, around you, we're still using maybe cups from the earth, drinking vessels from the earth. And the priest is there with
Golden goblet.
Yes. So when you saw that, you thought, yeah, definitely it's God. But when I was in the museum, when I saw that the person who was commissioned to do artworks for the Catholic Church
Da Vinci.
was actually a person called John Lavery, an artist, just drawing, those were pieces of art brought to Africa, then made people have these images of Christ as a white person. But that's a digression. But you said something.
And Hollywood did not make it easy. All the movies that they've acted on Christ, on Paul, what's the name of this other guy who was acting also? 2 or 3 of them. There are almost like 4, 5, 6 types of Christ. You can Google it up, it's readily available. The Christ, the Da Vinci Codes, and all the movies that they've acted on Christ. They find characters, and before you notice it, their pictures are taken. One generation, it's a movie. The other generation, it's no longer a movie. It's actually the Christ. The next generation, it has become a doctrine. I mean, I know very well. I lived in South Africa for years. Henry Kele acted the part of Shaka the Zulu. I knew the guy. He passed away a few years ago. But when you now pick, if you Google Shaka, guess who comes up?
Yes.
The movie star himself, Henry Kele, pops up as Shaka. I understand because I grew up with
Yes.
him.
Yeah.
But 3, 4 generations down, as the real Shaka is fading away, the movie Shaka comes out. We may find in the future actually a whole statue of Shaka being Henry Kele.
Yeah, that is so true. That is so true.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Maponga. It's a privilege to have you here in Belfast. I think I just have 2 questions. I'll just summarize. The first one has to do with the development of Africa. We are seeing there's a rush for resources, competition for resources, and at the end of the day, it is Africa where all these superpowers are looking at. But we are looking at these countries as if they have reached that point of achievement we as Africans cannot attain, but at the same time they are dependent on our resources to keep their economies in balance. So my question is, what can be done? What needs to be done? Because I'm looking at the landscape of Africa. We are blessed with so much resources, but we have leaders, we have problems with leadership, but there seems to be, I think it's a brick wall to say, yes, we have resources, but there is no innovation, there is no initiative to convert those resources to manufacture, to industrialize, to bring value, to add value to what we have, so that when they are coming, they are not coming to get the resources, but they're coming to get the byproduct. So the first question is, what needs to be done from your, in your own opinion?
Let me try and attempt that one first before I lose track of thought. You are the weakest link. You educated people, you are the problem. You cannot blame soldiers who all they know is how to shoot, and they are sitting in parliament as ministers and as presidents. And you hope that they will know how to operate and run a manufacturing plant. You who have gone to school, why not go to the bush there and get aloe and start making creams? Go and get some money and start making oils for mosquitoes. Why not take the same metals that are in your backyard and start making chases of cars, creating new products? You're an engineer, for example. You're an engineer, but you are an engineer who is an employee. So until the educated community begins to use their education towards creating those very products that the West is looking for, we're not going anywhere. Number two, deliberately, the African economies have been built as raw material suppliers, not as value addition economies. That's unfortunate. So Africa is competing right now. Who is exporting the most raw materials? Not who is producing the best finished products. Only now, when you begin to look at Burkina Faso, but I'm going to be meeting with Abraham Traore by Sunday, Monday, next week. I'm meeting for Burkina Faso, just to go and see what he's doing there. Only when you begin to see some of these young people that are coming onto the space, and something like, I'm going to make a railway line here. I'm not going to sell my uranium there. I'll build the plant here. If France, you want power, you're going to have to put your cables here and take the power there, so that I can have the switch. When you misbehave, I can also switch it on and switch it off. And when you begin to see the mischief, I wish I would have the next conference in France. It's very urgent. I feel sorry for the black community that is living in France and in Europe. This bubble of colonial muscle is slowly coming to a collapse. You are going to feel it as Ireland, because you are one of the biggest ship manufacturers and one of the biggest iron forgers for various instruments and hardware, including weaponaries and etc. I wonder what will happen if wherever you're getting your iron ore, at the pace at which we are going right now in terms of sensitizing our African government, and they start putting embargoes and close down. These foundries are going to grow mosquitoes and owls. They're going to become ghost houses. When Africa finally says enough is enough to the export of raw material. But not for us just to stop the export of raw material. We needed you in diaspora to start thinking homeward and say, whatever skills that I've acquired here in a foreign land, if I should go back home, how best can I actually beneficiate, develop, and improve the products that are at home, if not be to manufacture the final products. I mean, how can you, dare you, Kenya and Tanzania and Uganda, the three of them, are supplying the whole of Europe with coffee and tea. Guess the problem. They are selling that coffee at less than 50, 60 cents, a whole bag like this. But for you to get a cup of coffee here, they're charging $5, $6 a cup of coffee. Who makes the money at the end of the day? They are not even allowed in a country like Tanzania and Kenya. You are not even allowed to grind the coffee. You'll be arrested. You must just pack it and send it out. Then they make the chocolates This is the quality of the leaders that you have left for us. But I don't blame you, because every year they come as multinational companies, they harvest all the top brains in bursaries and scholarships. Some in Edinburgh, some in Queen's University, some in Oxford, some in Massachusetts, some in America. And then you wonder why Africa is being ruled by fools, when all the geniuses are sitting around you. All the big brains, there's no one who has come from Africa who is uneducated. All the people whose brains are working. That's why you're here. You quickly, 1 + 1 - 2 + 3. Huck, I'm out of here. And then we have remained with people that you must explain a concept to them for 16 years, telling them we need to fix this thing, and the guy still is saying, what? What? These guys failed even matric. They failed all levels. Some have 2 points. U, D, even history, they have an F. But now they're running a department. You tell me, my brother. What can you expect? So it's not a joke. This is serious. Not only do we have a mediocre education, but the international market is also harvesting the best amongst us. And the politics itself has been built in bilateral relationships that say no to manufacturing and production. Are you aware? BMW, Mercedes-Benz, Toyota, every president who comes in must renew that contract. Guess what the contract says? We'll give you a few ambulances and a few cars for the police and a few cars for your presidential thing. Just sign here, please. What does it say? We will manufacture the cars. Please don't manufacture local cars. We can only do assembling over here. Those treaties are what is keeping South Africa, for example. They can produce military vehicles. They can produce helicopters. They can produce all these big, they have been shipping fighting equipment, but they've not produced one car. Apparently South Africa can't produce a car, but they can produce a military vehicle. They can produce military, artillery, even helicopters. So what stops the government from taking the technology from Dineo, which is the parastatal, the state-owned enterprise, SOE, that is actually running this. What stops Dineo from making at least one small little bucky, which we can make available on the market? No. BMW and Toyota, now Harley has come in also, Honda has come in, and all brands are making their way there, and they sign only one thing. We'll give you 150 cars, 10 in Eastern Cape, 6 over there, 100 over there, and put them in your police. Please give us your market. We'll sell finished cars. It's cheaper. Some of those cars, what is pathetic, they are being assembled in South Africa, in Spingo, in Durban. It is cheaper to buy a South African manufactured car in Australia, pay for it cash, put it on a ship, pay the customs and duty, and still get it at a cheaper price than buying the same Toyota Corolla in South Africa. Now, put that mathematics for yourself, if your brain can run that fast. You manufacture the car here. It is taken 4,000 or 5,000 kilometers away. You go to the market there, you buy it, you ship it back home, including costs, and pay duty. It is still cheaper to buy a South African manufactured car in Australia than it is locally. Put the mathematics for yourselves. Someone is messing up somebody here. And this is the economy that you're talking about, which is business deals, brown envelopes, poor education, lack of understanding of value chains, so that an educated community can actually become a solution to the economy as to how do we beneficiate our own minerals, our own agricultural products, to create a market. And I don't blame you for coming to the UK. Wherever the minerals are going, that's where jobs are. Did you know that?
So would you agree, are we corrupt? Are we corrupt, or are we just lazy? What's happening? Because it seems to me, and I've been thinking about this, I'm not just saying it. Sorry to take it away, but I'm trying to it's an argument that could really be, that's in my head. The people here, they wake up every day. They, whether it's snowing, it's whatever, they wake up every day to go and make sure that there are no potholes on the road. They just work at a certain standard. And is it because we are not replicating that to build a similar economy, or are we just having
you're trying
those spiritual issues?
You're trying to fit round holes in with square holes. The psychology of the African when it comes to labor, ethics, morality, and reason for existence, the model is not the capitalistic mindset. The African can work harder than the Chinaman if he knows the benefit of why he's working. But the system we've been pushed into, where you work for 10, 15 hours for 18 pounds, where you're working and you're working for nothing. You're working to get a certificate after 45 years of work, good servant, years of service. My grandfather had one of those small little certificates and a bicycle. And you tell me that the work ethic. So the model of employment, the economics of the West, which is capitalistic, does not speak to the Ubuntu, where it can enthuse. The government puts things for people, even the things that we don't want. South Africa is my best example. They build roads, they build clinics, and when the people are angry, guess what they do? They take picks and shovels. They go and dig up that damn road, they burn the hospital, they burn the school. And I was working one of the inquiries there when we were doing some research. I said, but why? What's wrong with the South Africans? You go and burn a hospital where you're taking tablets from. You go and burn a school where your children are learning. They burned 15 schools the other day in Zanini area. 15 schools. Put them on flames. And we found out that people actually believe and think that these institutions belong to the government. They have not been given ownership.
You've got another part to your question. There's another question there, and she has a
But I
question.
wonder if I've made some attempt.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you very much.
It's a multifaceted question,
Yes.
and I think
Yes.
if you are to answer even on yours, the patronage that you need, it is someone knowing that they're working for themselves, rather than working for a system that is not thinking. Even right now, we only see our politicians during elections. Never see them again. And then you are expecting us to work hard and wake up at 3 in the morning. But right now, take 10 bags of cement, walk up to your village, and speak to the village and say, we want us to fix this road. Tell me how many of them will come and how many hours they will spend.
Yeah. That's a hard question, you know. Sisi, shower.
Well, it was,
Chihera.
it was more related to what you said about being Catholic. I was also brought up Catholic, but I don't think the point is about being Catholic or Baptist or whatever. It's about how we, in my opinion, it's how we take in religion. I think we're taking religion on another level, where I think, like you were talking about Mudzim, the minute I light up my Benson and Hedges and smoke it, it's normal. None of these people will be looking at me. But the minute I put snuff here, it's associated by witchcraft, which I think is very sad. I mean, like he's explained, he's gone back years. So it's not about being Catholic, it's about any religion that has managed to manipulate us into thinking that certain values are dead and gone. And the minute you're doing it, it's associated with witchcraft. So, question to you, sir. How best do you educate people on that?
We are here after 400 years, and 150 years has been much more intense. Well, that's when colonialism became more intentional. They created programs that were consistent. They created churches that are weekly. They created education that is 5 days a week. They created employment that is 5 days a week. They created entertainment that is 24 hours. They created telephones and etc., which is 26 hours a day, non-stop. The bombardment, which I might want to call knowledge pollution, of deformed forms of thinking and influences that are constantly beating upon the heads of people. And I don't think some of us who are sitting looking at me right now, you still know what your voice sounds like when you are by yourself. And I work in the intellectual space. I get sad. I've read the books the size of half of that wall from bottom to top. And then someone says, I think. Then it's, hey, once you say you think, I get excited. Then I want to get closer to you and hear, what do you think? only to hear that what you are thinking actually is what the church thinks. Is what Plato says. Is what Karl Marx says. Is what TVA says. It's what Dobson says. It's what Lucifer and Pelt says. It's what Marxism says. Then I still ask you, but what you are saying, you can't say you think. When you are quoting what other people have thought already, what do you think? You may be shocked that many of us who are sitting, even looking at me right now, every time you open up your mouth and say, I think, surprise me and tell me exactly what do you think. Except that you are regurgitating what the system has polluted your minds to be. That was colonization. The question is, how do you uneducate yourself? How do you unlearn? To me, that's a much more intense question. Because then it's not a corporate question, but an individual question. What do you do to detox yourself? What do you do to detox your appetite? Your love for pizza, your love for Coca-Cola, your love for Western things. What do you do to decolonize your clothes? I dress up like this just to offend you, because I can. Okay, I still have my Gucci suit and my Armani suit. That surely, if I dress them up nicely here, you'll have to stop the cars here. I still look nice in them. But it's no longer material. I can walk barefoot feet and I still don't feel nothing. I'm equally well. And I would love to, as I'm growing right now, to begin to clean up my palette, clean up my wardrobe, clean up my construction. I'm building a village, a whole village to myself. And I'm using indigenous methods of building, but building modern things, beautiful, classy. It looks like a old tattered hut from outside. Go inside, find a 5-star. And I'm not saying let's go back and do things the way the traditional people are doing. But I'm saying let's look at the technology of the past and then modernize it. If you're an architect, look at those roundabouts. Why not build new skyscrapers that have the design, the aerodynamics, the intelligence of our ancestors, instead of building these houses that have corners? I was asking him in the afternoon, what is the use of a corner on a house? A corner. As contrasted to a round house. What do you need a corner for? But in our heads, we've been told once you have money and you go to the village, you must build a 4-cornered house with metal sheets. Imbaya mazenge. Because he built a house that has iron sheets. That's how now the community measures progress. Dare you become educated and you build another roundabout and you thatch it up, then the whole community will sit for a committee to find out which kind of school did this one go to. So the pressure is not only coming from outside, it's even coming from inside, because even our ancestral system is now being repulsed by the very culture that we have. China and India, best illustrations for me. You get there right now, and half of our top executives, when they get sick, they're all in China and India. But guess what, when you get to India, they ask you, do you want synthetic medicine or do you want alternative medicine? Do you want the white man's medicine or do you want Chinese medicine? And they have been able to take those herbs and etc., put them in there, package them, and build a bridge of knowledge, so that be it technology, be it medicine, etc., they're able to bring these technologies and now they're acceptable in the Western world. What do we do to transform ourselves? It takes a mind change. It takes you to create your African brands and patronize them, first with yourselves. And let's begin to resell that it is fashionable to give birth to children in the African way. We don't need to cut our women's tummies, because cesarean sections is not real, it's business. Pregnancy is not a sickness in our village, it's normal. Yes. Dogs give birth to 16 kids at one time. You cannot be crying with one.
So looking at our time, I think that you
she still was saying something. So we took away a question from you.
So there's 3 questions. She's got a question as well. So we have got about
no, mine is not a question.
We've got about 15 minutes left.
Gogo cannot ask anything.
All right.
But
mine is not a question. It's just on colonization. But do you not think it's up to us how we think? Because I've seen families where a Zimbabwean and a Zimbabwean married. You go to their house, The child is upstairs playing a video game. I've been there for like 45 minutes. This child, let's pretend, is called Tatenda. Tatenda hasn't been down to say hello to auntie. And I would say, oh, where's Tatenda? Like, what are you saying? As a parent,
it's not my child.
As a parent, are you? That's nothing to do with colonization, because white people don't do that.
No, sister, slow down.
Yes.
Slow down. That is colonization on steroids. The parents have.
What do you mean on steroids?
The parents have swallowed the entire colonial way of bringing up their children. So even if they're Zimbabweans, they used to beat up their child for speaking in Shona. We even have mothers who have banned their children from speaking local languages.
Yeah.
We are going to So you push them in that lane of de-associating them. By the time they're grown up, the other one came to the village the other day, and while we were milking cows, he was looking at the other one, which was a bull. He was asking, why are you not milking that one? I'm just saying the
small mind.
The amount of disparity and disjoint. It's amazing. The other one went to a toilet, a pit one, and was asking, where do I flush? The brain is already there. In a toilet, there must be something to flush. And the I'm saying is colonization on steroids. Even when the parents have now begun also to implement the same methods, the way the colonialists bring up their children. That's why I said maybe it's not their child. That child is a stranger. And one morning you come down from there and beat up the mother and beat up the father.
Yeah.
So there's another question over there, then we might come to yours. Do you feel you still have a question?
Yeah,
you still have your second question, isn't it?
It's just giving others a chance.
So, yeah.
I think you've probably partly answered my question already, because I was going to say, you know, when you talk about the education that we received, and if we are calling it education, and it made us good clerks, good nurses. At the time, there were curfews at 6 o'clock. We were not allowed to come into town after 6 p.m. And even for myself, personal experiences when I was in school in Zimbabwe, a lot of the white colleagues that we went to school with did not come back to school after O levels, because they were being taught trades to go into farms to run, things to do. And if you apply the same to here, if we look at children going to grammar schools or children going to just, you know, your normal secondary schools, we are pushing them to get degrees, to get doctorates, to get that, to get all the intellectual accolades. But the wealthy people are teaching their children to do business plans, to buy, you know, you've got your
stocks.
Teslas going to buy, you know, an invention from China for 50,000 and making 50 billion out of it. You know, you're teaching your kids that if you don't have the brains to invent, have the money to go and buy it from somebody else who's invented it, who needs the money. So whenever we're talking about education, are we talking about reading books and graduating? And because, you know, I reached a point where I even had to say to my kids, just do enough to pass. Don't give them your genius. Save that for when you work for yourself. Because sometimes, you were talking earlier about scholarships. When I look at scholarships, I see people picking out the cream of genius, harnessing it, and funneling it.
And killing them after
so
that. And then they butcher them in there.
Exactly. You know, if you look at people like Marie-Thérèse, frustrating you so much that you lose your inquisitiveness. You lose your thinking outside the box, that, you know, the very thing that attracted them to you, to give you that scholarship.
And again, this is the painful part where real education is called informal education.
Yeah.
And what you have is what they call formal education. But if what you went to school to study is formal education, how come when you finish that education, they want experience?
Exactly.
Just ask. So you take me from primary to high school to college. I now have my master's. I'm 25 years old. I'm applying for a job. And if they were destined of asking me, how many years of experience? crying out loud, where do you think I get the experience from? I've just walked out from school. The system has not even yet prepared you to begin the same job that they've trained you to do.
So we say it's rigged then, the system is rigged.
My brother, memorizing capital cities of the world cannot be called education. I wish we'd memorize trees and know which tree heals malaria, which tree is for contraception, which tree can you use for this. If we had memorized and we had that kind of knowledge, at least I would say maybe we are educated to an extent of being functional and being operational within our environments of life. But alas, our education does not even begin. I mean, our grandmothers, those wicked grandmothers, they would see a woman that is pregnant 1 kilometer away. They just go, this one. And you wonder, how did they know? And that education has been lost. Your child now, my sister, my own blood sister, gave birth to a child 9 months later. I was paying for a degree at the university. She delivered in my house, and I didn't even notice that she was pregnant.
But you're not a grandma.
But I follow what I'm saying. The next thing I'm in a conference and I'm hearing she needs nappies and diapers and because she's delivering. She's in a what? The trauma on its own and fast tracking, and I said, how could I even fail to see such a disaster that was in my house? And that knowledge for me cannot be bought nor sold. Grandmothers will put beads on our girls' waistlines. Once in a while they'll put their hands there and just slide in there to see is she gaining weight, etc. And if that beadwork snapped and it fell all of a sudden, they knew something very big was happening there. They had their own sciences, their own technologies. Would see birds, and they could tell we're going to have drought this year. How do you know? Those birds that make nests by the river, when the birds make their nests very high in the branches, they know there's going to be flood. When the birds make their nests too low to the water, they know it's going to be a drought. They've been observing those birds because they have a sense, an extra sense. And way 3-4 months before the rains even start coming, you start seeing those birds putting up their nests. And every year, grandmothers would know when they go washing in the river to tell, are the nests too low this year? Are they average? Are they up? If they make the nest right up on the sun, then they start expecting floods. And they said, now this knowledge, which I call ancestral knowledge, has been flushed away from amongst us. And if by the time some of us die, we die with it.
You're depressing me saying that because it looks like we are fighting a losing battle because it's gone.
No, but there are people that are harnessing that and calling it evidence-based because it is. It's passed down generation. And it is evidence because it can be proven.
Let me encourage you. Language is a library. Language is a science. Language is spiritual. Language is technology. Language, if all of us die, our generation, I will challenge you to do one thing. Please master your language. Because when you look at it, I'll give you a key. You have a look at that tree, they call it mususu. What do you call it? There's a tree we call mususu. Mususu. When you kill a goat or you kill a cow, the upper intestines, what do we call it? Susu. That tree is mu, and this is. Did you know that mususu heals the susu? So in our language, there is actually a correlation between, I wish I could do this in a better way, and I left my hats, my decorated thinking hats. They would give you the vegetation, the herbs, the trees, and all those colors are linked up to the members of your body. Your liver for the red, your yellow for your bile, your green for your tummy, your purple for your pineal gland, etc. So the colors of the beadwork of the Zulus and the Xhosas and the Ndebeles, it's not just craft. It's another library, which is full of knowledge. If you master those colors, then you have mastered your diet in terms of eating. You have mastered the whole anatomy in terms of your body. You have also mastered your herbs in terms of the bush. Now marry the things together. So there's a tree called Vamaropa, a tree that bleeds. And that tree is good for healing the blood, as much as you have beetroot for your blood and etc. Then you have trees that have yellow roots. Those trees are good for fixing up your liver. And there's the yellow that is on the thing. So this language is there. Even if I die, learn your language. Because your language has those passwords. Those passwords.
Do we have time for one more question? You've got a question?
Yes.
Is there another question? Does anybody else have a
Let me
question?
throw another one last one, while we are on that one, language. So even when you hear people mentioning words like Murora, you know what is Murora? Huh? Murora, that is daughter-in-law. But Muro, Ora, this one is rotten. But how can you say a woman is rotten? No. We say before you get married, make sure that you die in your father's house and you resurrect in your new house where you're building. So don't carry the baggage of your home of birth, but die, and then start a new life in a new space. That's why in the Zulu and Xhosa culture, when you're getting married to a young girl, she comes in the morning, she does not even have a name. They say, we've brought your thing. We bring your thing here. And then other people, the white people say, how do you call a human being a thing? Because a woman, when she's at the gate, the day of her marriage, she neither has a name and etc. Then we take her to the kraal and we tell the ancestors, those cattle that left here, they have gone there. The replacement is now here. So there are two children in this house. One that is born through the testicles of the father and one that is born through the kraal. And the one who is born from the kraal is coming from the ancestors. So she comes nameless. She is named in the kraal. And she now becomes the wife of the ancestors, who is a mother to us. Through her, she will become a grand matriarch, who will know everything about all of us, though she's not related to all of us. The mediator between us and the ancestral world, because that's where she's coming from. Now, this will blow off your heads. So when you don't understand African culture, just shut up. Just shut up. Don't demonize it. Because the science of building communities. Now, if some of you are Ndebele inclined, then you just hear someone say, hey, she's in paper. She's in paper. Hey, we're burning paper as who? Because it's only your grandmother, the one who has made us, but coming outside of us, related to us, but not our blood relative. She's the one who can stand and negotiate with the spiritual world on behalf of these rascals. And even her prayers, she can feel them in her loins. Because these are her children, but they're not her relatives. So next time you look at your mother, you're not related to her. That's why you have mother-in-law, brother-in-law, sister-in-law, son-in-law. But the woman herself is the law. You don't have a wife-in-law. All relationships are defined. And then people come around and talk about patriarchy, misogynistic, and say, hey. If you don't understand African culture, just shut up, sit on a corner somewhere there and keep quiet. I'm not talking about the diluted African culture, which is colonialism overlays on it. If we are supposed to talk about it ourselves, in our own indigenous spaces of thinking, I get worked up when I talk about that. Don't speak about things that you don't understand. We're not patriarchal as Africans. We are maternal. Mudzi, Rutu, Mai, Mudzi, Ndimai, Mumudzi, Mudzi, Don't want some fun. Now the root is your mother and the ancestor is actually accessed through your mother. So how do you go and say how dare you say that? You talk about your mother first. Hey, my hey, when I shumba, garana nadziva. Hey, when I'm njenje, do akabereka baba wangu. Hey, when I'm moyo, ndima akabereka. Hey, when I'm kanya, nana shoshe. You put all of them together. Then that becomes you recognize the root through which you came into existence. That's ancestral understanding. And knowing that knowledge, therefore, is not only an academic piece of information, it's also an ancestral portal. So if I go to the bush, like I do usually, and I put a stone over here, and I put another stone over here, and I put another stone over here, and I put another stone over here, and I stand at the center. Then I recognize my grandmothers on my mother's side. I recognize the grandmothers on my father's side. I recognize the grandfathers on my father's side. I recognize the grandfathers on my father's side. Now I'm standing at a portal. Between these four rocks, this has become a temple through which I come into existence. Now if you don't understand that, so when you see these four signs on our heads and on our art, it's not just art, pieces of art, which people are talking about. We are actually talking now. Look at this carefully. You can put a line this way, put another line this way, put another line this way, and put another line this way. For the first time, I'm now interpreting African art. You can understand those diamonds that you find on our African culture. By the time you put a line between here, you have a triangle over here, there's a relationship that gives me back to this one. There's a relationship that gives me this one. There's a relationship here. So you have 3, 3, 3, 3 by 4. That's 12. That's a whole parliament that is already here. So we begin to understand those numbers that are on our signs and genealogical connection. I need another full lesson. Even by the time we look at our sticks and all these are fertility sticks that are speaking of rings, of connectivity. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. The 4 and the 4 give me the mother and the father. That gives me the 1. So I'm number 11. I'm the first. So those are pieces of art which you can collect and put in a museum and say, found in Zimbabwe, history unknown. You can't even interpret a basic thing that is here. There are my diamonds, there are my diamonds that appear on my stick. So it's the language. The language remains the storehouse of the knowledge that you are missing. So maybe we may need to start actually buying those Shona dictionaries, Nyanzo Singwi, Tsumo, Mandimikira, and go back to the village and identify those trees, identify those rivers, identify those mountains, identify those stones, and understand those methodologies.
But you see, I'm listening to you, and there is so much to decolonize there in our minds. And if colonization was at an industrial, level, I think we need to do the same with the decolonization. And that, to me, I think of all the things that you've been talking about, my reflection is it just needs leadership. That's all that's like
political will.
All that.
Political will to transform. You're right. I cannot take anything away from that. And again, while you're on that, just to summarize, we will have failed, my elder. We will have failed to think that colonization was a single subject, was a single project, where it was only about decolonizing and it was a religion. No, it was a full product. Full product. Education needs decolonization. Fashion needs decolonization. Sports need decolonization. Spirituality needs decolonization. Industries, medicines need decolonization. Entertainment needs health, technologies need decolonization. So ultimately we may need to start looking at not just decolonizing and doing a pushback to colonial systems, but what kind of systems are we creating parallel to the systems that we're given. We may need to go back to community banking, for example, so that we can do our own development projects and put money to each other like the Jews are doing, like the Indians are doing. They've been able to indigenize banking. One of the biggest banks in India right now is not a government-owned business. It is a community-owned business. If you follow what I'm saying? One of the biggest pharmaceutical companies right now in India is not a mainstream. It is indigenous, and it is. So we need to start maybe looking at ourselves and say, can we redo our researches and our masters and our PhDs in real life transforming kind of institutions that can give us an alternative? I left behind one of my favorite jackets, which is made out of buck cloth. I got the cloth in Uganda, and some of you follow me on my Facebook page. One morning, the whole media went crazy, and they thought I'd lost my mind. I was putting on a mat. If you go to Mtare, they go on a baobab tree, then they cut maybe 1 meter by 1 meter. So they take a piece of the bark, and they beat it up, and they grind it and whatever, and pound on it until it is soft. Then they make those beautiful mats, ones you use for cleaning up your feet. Little did people know, I get excited in storytelling, little did people know I'd been to Jamaica and I'd bought myself a marijuana shirt. Little did they know I'd been to Philippines and I got myself a pineapple shirt. And when I'm driving from Chimanimani coming down, I see this mat and boom, my mind almost jumped out of my head. When they told me the science that the tree is still alive, but the mat is here. So they also make those hats, which have those dangling things and etc. I bought one big mat. I opened up on the top, I put it on my head. I bought another 3 mats, one in the front, one in the back. And I took a picture, voila, with the head of man, said, guys, look at this. This is Maponga is putting on a mat. He's lost his mind. And I only discovered later that I'd run way ahead of many of them. What I was saying is that the technology of harvesting the barks from the tree, we already have. How to process it, we already have. What is only lacking is now how do we weave these things into materials and make living clothes for the green energy. It took me 3 weeks to clean up that picture.
You should have just said, because you confused everyone. You're just wearing a...
But remember, you must be responsible for it. So I just do. And when I knew I was coming here, of course, I had to get myself a very nice jacket with a bit of fare.
Yes, my question, I'll just summarize in the interest of time. I think, what's your opinion? I'm just focused on Africa.
Yeah.
What's your opinion with regards to migration? I'm looking at South Africa, the xenophobia. It's sending a very wrong message that is contradictory to, the Pan-African spirit. Because if we look back, states like Rojim Tapa, they would trade with the Arabs at Sofala province. The Arabs would come from Asia
To Mapungu.
to Mapungu as well, because there was free movement of people and goods, and there were no boundaries. So if we are going to tap into the ancient ancestral knowledge to get, notes on how to develop ourselves or our country in this day and in the future, what, in your opinion, do you think needs to be done to promote that kind of environment?
Through the chair here, I want to recommend maybe a good comeback in the future, where we can do the lineages and totems. The South African child has been misinformed. How does Ngwenya, Mkwena from Lesotho kill a Gushungo from Zimbabwe? Yet Gushungo is Ngwenya from Zimbabwe. How does Mtaung and Ntsivande kill a Banda from Zambia, when actually Banda is also of a lion? How does Mtswene and Skosana kill Mkanya, kill Nkima or Kipyegen from Kenya, when actually Kipyegen is just as a monkey as they are a monkey also? So our totemic connections supersede our language and our nationalities. Now that takes a whole day for us maybe to see how do we trace the elephants, how do we trace the leopards, how do we trace the buffaloes, how do we trace the snakes, all these totems that we have. And I would have taken you through a full session on totemic history, the totems of the air, the totems of the forest, and the totems of the water. And how are these totems actually the big river that flows through Africa? And the day you find a passport for a river, then call me. Congo starts the river Zambezi. Angola, Congo, Namibia, Zambia, Zimbabwe, Mozambique. So which passport do you give the Zambezi River? River Nile, from Sese Island, Nelubale, Sudan, Ethiopia, Egypt, into Mediterranean. How many passports? If we could understand that even our animals in the Serengeti, from Kenya to Tanzania to Uganda, how many passports? Are you telling me that animals have more freedom, rivers have more freedom than human beings do? Let us not glorify and over-glorify the Berlin Conference. every government is a crime scene. Any president of any African country is a liar, because you are glorifying the very same borders that Berlin Conference gave you. So how can you say a president of Malawi when the borders of Malawi are not determined by Malawians? Because both in Zimbabwe, in Zambia, and in Malawi, and in Tanzania, you find the Nyasa people. So how do you put a line in my grandmother's heart and kitchen? And then this one needs a passport there, this one is a passport there. I think that argument has been overspoken for a long time. We needed to start finding the correct education that can connect us in our totemic values throughout the continent. On another day, we'll discuss the value of totems, and as we go along, I think, but for now, you could build up a small little group and see if we can take them through the university and the museum here and keep us in a contribution. I would love to be part of that group. If there's any extra information needed, please be my guest. And when you come back to Zimbabwe, I'm building up a village. If you want to participate, you can build a hut for yourself and name it after yourself. When you come in, you have free accommodation, and in any way other people can use it. And I want to build a village so that when you bring your children back to the village, you can teach them how to grind mill, how to make peanut butter, how to smear and fix houses. It's a more or less an ecological, cultural tourism, rehabilitation center. When these kids that are sitting, madam, when these kids that are sitting in their rooms, when you bring them down, please, before you take them to your village, bring them to my village first. Bring them to my village. I don't cook for anybody. You go to the garden, pick your own vegetables, cook for yourself, clean your own plates. If the pot is broken, I'll give you the clay, make another one. You start from scratch, no shortcuts. So, I think with that in mind, I thank you all for coming. Yes, sir.
I have a question.
Let's give him first.
I have a question, yeah. I just want to talk about Africa entirely, because I remember those days when we have somebody like Gaddafi, Mugabe. We know, we have a little bit the idea, the kind of way they want to rule the country. So, and the plan they have in Africa entirely to unite Africa as one united. With that, with what Ibrahim is doing right now with President of Ghana, building the railway throughout to join together. Yeah. So my question is, will Africa be great again? Will Africa be one united? Can they use the same one passport, one currency to conquer this?
Brother, I cannot overemphasize what you have said. That is the recipe. So let me give you a simple example, very simple example. China is sitting with 1.2 billion people. Now, that's power. Just one insurance company in China, one, is sitting on an asset value of, I was doing a workshop this morning, is sitting on an asset value of 980 billion. One insurance company. The other one is sitting on 650 billion. These are the kind of monies when they walk up into an economy such as Botswana. I'm talking about just two, not even two, one insurance company. And Botswana is struggling roughly with a GDP of less than 6 or 7 or 10 billion. Now you bring, I'm not even talking about China's economy. I'm just talking about an insurance company, a company. And if they should come to Botswana, are you aware that they can buy the whole country, the people, the pigs, the goats, and everything? Because when we have bigger economies come to our smaller economies, abuse will always happen. But imagine if the 1.8 billion people in Africa can come together. Our negotiation changes, our bargaining power changes. Our minerals are on a common stock exchange. We have a common currency. We have one army. We have one passport, not to go to South Africa. Then this is the problem that South Africans have. They think we all want to go to South Africa. I have a house in South Africa, but I'm in Zimbabwe. And half, if not 3/4 of all the Zimbabweans who are in South Africa, if they make money tomorrow morning, they'll take their money and go back home. So when I was looking at Ramaphosa, he's spending about 120 million rands per quarter to send Zimbabweans back. I almost felt like writing to him and said, please give me 60 million of that money. No, not in a bad way. Give me 60 million. I'll open chicken farms along the border and the neighboring towns and employ half of those youth. Tell me how many of them will cross over to South Africa if they have their own jobs and they have their own employment. But no, put them in a truck and when they drop them, immediately they drop them. They're under the bridge. And this cycle has been going on for 10 to 15 to 20 years. So the government, and by the way, ANC, ZANU-PF, SWAPO, Zambia, they were all in Tanzania during liberation struggle, training together, friends during the struggle. Now they are enemies after liberation. Doesn't make sense that ZANU-PF and ANC were sleeping in the same bed in Morogoro, in Buitima, in Tanzania. They were comrades, sharing blankets and sharing guns. Now they're in power. The weakest link to African unity are our presidents. Because now they have become landlords, and some of them are taking our economies as their family businesses. And if they should give Africa to unity, then their empire collapses. So who is keeping us away from the Africa unity? It's our presidents. Because each one of them is a god in his country. So if we make one Africa, maybe they won't vote for me to become the leader of Africa. So and the white people are coming there with treaties to manage. Corruption is not sponsored by Africans, man. Stop it. There is corruption. It's a venue. The corruptor is the one who has the money. The corruptee is the one who receives change, loose money. And those are our governments. There's a deal here for 10 billion, and you are given 1 million, and you say you are corrupt. Where is the other 999? Where is the real money? The real money is not in corruption. The real money is in the deal that corrupted you. Zimbabwe, they were talking about the gold mafias. I did a program, full program. Gold mafia. I said, yes, that's fine. Gold mafia, no problem. Tell me, which country in the world gives its client $362 million packed in bags? Which country allows that person to get on a private jet and fly to Zimbabwe? And that money, they give $1,000 to the immigration officer, $1,000 to the passport control, $1,000 to the miners. The rest of it, they go to the gold diggers and they give that money at discounts. They collect that money on their way back. They spend 3,000, 4,000, 5,000, and they walk back to their country. And then you say there are gold mafias in Zimbabwe that are dealing with gold. I said, show me the currency of these gold diggers. And it's all in US dollars. And I asked the next question, can any bank manager in the country here tell me when did they authorize the withdrawal of 362 million? And then Zimbabwe is corrupt. So shut up the nonsense. Follow the money. These are Australians. These are Dubai people. These are Qatar people. These are Turkish people that are corrupting our system, and then you leave us with a black mark on our faces that African governments are corrupt. No. China right now is spilled cyanide into Kitwe. And the government is saying, no, there's cyanide, but it is within acceptable consumable standards. What the fuck? What? Acceptable. It's poisonous, yes, but it's within acceptable. So who is eating the money? Is it? And how much have we been bribed as a government to begin to speak like that? Corruption? But more than that, I think what you're asking is a very important question. In unity, even the smaller countries become strong. Our problem right now, I can tell you up front, 3 countries are a nuisance to African development. 1 is Nigeria, 2 is Kenya, 3 is South Africa. They all are financially stable because they are deep in the pockets of the colonizers. And they are fighting actually who is bigger than the other. South Africans are saying we're bigger, Nigerians are saying we're bigger, and the two big boys on the continent. Kenya is the epitome of democracy on the whole continent. You are the three most loved in the whole world. And instead of you coming together quickly and saying, how do we help the small boys? How dare does Nigeria put Burkina Faso on sanctions because Abraham Traore has taken power? No, he's not democratic. Was he democratic himself, Tinubu? We know who won the election. But he's running the country, and he wants to teach the whole world about democracy. I think some of these circuses, Kano is still in prison. Biafra is still on standby. Wadudua is not being spoken about. And we are talking about democracy. Come on, guys, we are no longer stupid. We've been to school. We know this junk. I think unity is the way to go. And I thank you. I'm done, guys. I'm tired. You still want to talk?
Oh, I just saw the clip.
You want to clap? You're last.
I'm last time. Well, I have heard something that has been just sitting on my mind for years. I hope you will be able to help me on this one. Why is God always referred to as him?
Because it is males that were writing it. Because it is males that were writing it. The male chauvinists who are writing the Bible. And again, when you come to the concept of he, God, you need to go to the context of time when the translations of this book was done. I've argued in many places than one that you have a male God, you have a male Jesus, you have the male Holy Spirit. It sounds like a gay party. And when they want a child, then they must look for a woman. So what and even the whole thing about marriage and etc. said if God really is serious about marriage, then where is his wife? Where is the wife of Jesus? Why does the Bible seem to be angry about women? And Muslim, Islam, Christianity, and Judaism, all of them are Abrahamic faiths, and they have a problem with women. All of them. Not only do they have a problem with women, but they've actually built a theology of lies. Eve came out of Adam. Show me one woman who came out of a man. I'll show you 1,000,000 men that came out of women. Show me one woman who came out of a man. Show me one. Show me one woman who came out of a man. I'll show you every man that is here. Every one of us here. And how do women go to church? The same church that demonizes them, that they spoke to a snake, and they are the reason for sin. Women are second-class citizens. And women are 60% in the very religion that destroys them. And then they want to start women's organizations at the back of that church. Kill this monster that reduces you from being gods and mothers of Mother Earth. As people believe, so they behave. Wrong theology.
People, God bless. I just wanted to remind you that the conference should end at 9 a.m. It's 11 already.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good
It will
night.
soon end, yes.
Let's drink to that. Good night, good people.
But you know when you talk about the Bible and what made it into the Bible from the scrolls, when you study theology, do you talk about the human influence and the human effect on what made it into the Bible and why it made it into the Bible and why certain things didn't make it into the Bible? And then because we read the book like gospel without that human influence.
There is a lot. The Masoretes, the Catholics, the Ethiopian Bible, books of the dead, the Enuma Elish, the epics of Gilgamesh, the Amdeati, various books that have actually been of influence into the writing and the scripting of the text itself. The Bible that you hold in your hand right now is not even worth talking about. It is a plagiarism, an extrapolation of multi-platforms of data and information that was filtered and synthesized through a religious system which had a political voice on it. How did the homosexual King James Version himself, who was a homosexual, become the editor of the Bible? Go and read the other book that he wrote on exorcism and demons and how to worship demons. Same author. Some of this information is for free, but you cannot lose the Catholics and their priests and their masculine fashion, where they've actually excluded women up to date. Catholic priests who would not marry, they would rather be sleeping with women and making them pregnant behind doors. Last week, 700 fetuses were found in a Catholic monastery from Catholic ladies. Some of these things can be spoken about. Sodomizing of boys and etc. If you are interested in marriage, why not just damn get married? But no, the Catholic father has a problem with women. As Jesus has a problem with women. As Paul has a problem with women. As Allah has a problem with women. But at the end of Islam, bless your heart, when you die, you go to heaven as a man. You are given 7 women as a great gift from Allah. Shalom. Salam alaikum. The very problem on earth is your reward when you get on the other side. I've not understood that today.